So today, over the next hour, we are going to be talking about connecting for growth in healthcare. So a little bit about me. I am a physical therapist. I am coming up on 19 years in the clinic this year. I graduated from Thomas Jefferson University in 2006 with my master's and went back right in to get my doctorate in 2008. A very early on in my career learned that healthcare was much more than the clinical skills we were learning in school, which inspired me to go back for my MBA, which I finished in 2010, and really took advantage of my institution's tuition reimbursement programs. So if you're not familiar with them where you work, take a look at them, take advantage of them. I paid nearly nothing for my MBA, and it's a great skill set that has served me very well in my career. So if you're thinking about it, look into it and start investing that time in yourself as well. I probably could tell you one of my personal hobbies is learning. As you can see from the letters behind my name, I am kind of a sucker when it comes to a certification. I am a geriatric clinical specialist through the APTA, certified dementia practitioner. I am also a canine rehabilitation specialist, more so because I ended up in the ER one day with my dog and realized I could have done this as a PT. I don't use it. It's a very expensive hobby gone awry, I would say. Most interestingly, where my career has led me now is into the more holistic path. I am a Reiki master and practitioner, and I have a holistic business where I help to bring the clinical knowledge I have as a PT in that Western healthcare world into that Eastern healthcare space, right? That space where we are talking more about the non-tangibles, our feelings, our emotions, and how they connect and manifest as physical pains in the body that we treat as PTs. So not the topic of today, but that is what I do. Outside of my professional life, as I mentioned, I am a dog mom. Puff is my 15-year-old child and love of my life. He is quite the character and gives me anxiety, I will say that much, but it's great to see him thrive. Also a bird nerd, DIY enthusiast. I am the let's take on a project this weekend and think about it later type, and one day a golf pro hopeful, but for today, we are just sticking with mini golf. So as we go through our lunch hour, please keep in mind, no one strategy, advice, recommendation is fully applicable to the next person. I'm not here because I took one class or one lecture and voila, figured out how to network, mentor, and grow. It's taking bits and pieces from each person, putting together what's meaningful to me, right? So the beauty of the growth is learning from varied sources, taking what's meaningful and making it work for you. I encourage you to use today's information to create a template that works for your personality and communication style and professional goals, right? It's not an across the board, one size fits all. So why do connections matter? It's important to recognize that healthcare operates within a business framework. Whether you're a provider, a startup, a researcher, or in management, everything we do ultimately contributes to a business model. Operations has to support the financial cost to operate the company. This looks different state to state, as well as all the different areas along the continuum of care. While it would be lovely to not have to worry about productivity, the bane of our existence, the reality is someone is responsible for making sure the money going in is paid for by the money going out is paid for by the money coming in, so that our salaries are paid for by the reimbursement system. And it sounds awful at times, let's be honest, because our business involves people. We're not selling golf clubs, dog beds, cat poles, boots, shoes. We are selling people's lives. And I personally, you might not agree with me, but I personally believe that is why it's so awful sometimes when we hear productivity and all those things, because how do you put a time and a number on someone's life, as well as myself as a clinician? But personal connections and trust are at the heart of all business transactions. And that is not something we hear enough as clinicians. In healthcare, just like any other industry, people prefer to engage with those they know, trust, and have a positive relationship with. Building rapport can make the difference between a potential client choosing your service or not. Networking isn't just about business. It's also about personal development. Mentorship is one of the most valuable outcomes of fostering connections. Through building these relationships, you not only help advance your business, but also open doors for personal career growth and guidance from experienced professionals in the field. And as a clinician of 19 years, I can absolutely tell you things come full circle, and connections I made when I was a rehab aide at 16 are still coming back to the forefront of my life at 19 years into my career. So those connections don't go away. It is natural that you lose time, you lose connection, you lose time, but then people will reconnect. Those connections, I don't know about you all, but a false piece of mentality I had to get out of my mind was that if I wasn't talking to that connection on a daily basis, that there was no reason to reach out to them. It would feel awkward or uncomfortable. And I cannot tell you how much my perception of that has changed throughout my years of career going on, both on my comfort level, it's reaching out to people who I've talked to in 5, 10, 15 years, as well as I have seen others reach out to me on the opposite side where we haven't connected for 10 or 15 years. So try to let go of that thought process of, I haven't talked to someone, it's a connection I can't use, because that is part of networking, right? Ideally, we want to keep those connections and grow them and nurture them so they are seamless and long-term, but that's not how the world works. So giving ourselves the grace when we are human to step back and say, oh my gosh, it has been 5 years since I talked to you, but how are you? I remember you did this back when I talked to you. How'd things go with that? It might be something not even related to that person's life, but the idea that you remembered it does matter. And it's part of that why connections matter, and that networking isn't just that business. So through building those relationships, we talked about, you not only help advance your business, but also open doors for the future. Ultimately, people want to help people. It's an innate need in most of us, not all of us, but in most of us. And we're not expected to step into the clinic in our professional world on day one and excel, right? And this might be day one as a new therapist transition into the clinic space. This might be day one of a seasoned clinician coming in and starting a new job. You're not supposed to excel. And that is a pretense that gets us in a lot of trouble and sets us up to fail. People like to recognize growth and encouraging continued growth. And when people are pouring into you, that allows them and enables them to also feel value in who you are. And it builds that connection and that wanting you to succeed. Think of your professional relationships as an investment. We want investments to grow, and we want to raise that investment up so it can support the next generation, right? So again, our growth in healthcare, our growth in our professional world isn't one time you're done. It's looking at that over the longevity of your lifetime and recognizing those connections change. So bottom line, connections are not just important, they are essential. Whether you're looking to enhance your career, grow your own independent business, or improve healthcare outcomes, relationships are your absolutely biggest asset. So the current healthcare system challenges. This could be an entire, probably 8-hour CEU, right? So our current system is facing a number of challenges that impact both us as providers as well as patients. Understanding these challenges is the key to identifying opportunities for improvement and innovation, right? Understanding where this system is broken, lots of options to pick from, and trying to find a solution. You have to keep in mind, this is one of the biggest, I think, points of frustration and burnout for entrepreneurs and clinicians, that our healthcare system challenges are always changing. That bullseye, that needle, that mark is always moving. It's not fix the issue and then we're good again. It's fix the issue. January 1st comes, regulations change, reimbursements change. Guess what? Rinse, wash, repeat, change the issue again. So it's always changing. Again, this is a high-level overview. A lunch and learn is not nearly enough time to discuss all the changes of our healthcare system, current and what's coming down the road. But things to think about. Many communities, especially rural and underserved, are still facing significant barriers to access. Long wait times, limited availability of specialists, lack of transportation or financial resources further exacerbate the issue. Health disparities persist across different socioeconomic groups. and it does lead to unequal health outcomes. Healthcare costs are increasing at unsustainable rates for both patient and providers, which also means patients are coming in sicker because they can't afford to come in when the symptoms first start. They're getting to the door when the symptoms are already moderate to severe versus minimal, where intervention could be a little more reasonable. Looking at insurance premiums, deductibles, out-of-pocket cost, the expenses continue to rise, placing financial strain on individuals and families, right? Is it get medicine, or is it pay the rent, pay the mortgage, put food on the table? Hospital and clinics are also struggling with reimbursement rates, managing the high cost of provision of services, medical technology, and labor and staffing expenses and benefits, right? If you think about whether you're working for a large corporation or you're a smaller single practice, your expenses, even just for non-clinical related things, paper, tissue, hand gel, has all increased, and reimbursement has not increased to go along with that. There's also that ongoing shortage of healthcare professionals, nurses, doctors, as well as ourselves as PTOTs in speech. I started to see sign-on bonuses coming back on looking at job boards. I haven't seen that. They were around when I first started, when I was a PT in 2006, but they have not been around for quite some time. So you're talking 10, 15 years. So people are trying to recruit and they can't hold on to staff. This leads to increased workload for the staff that stay, the existing staff, creating burnout, creating illness in our own selves, and sometimes lower quality of care, right, for our patients and our clients due to lack of attention or resources, because there's only so much time in the day. We have our higher stress levels that we face as clinicians in an already overburdened system. We are seeing tragic episodes of violence happening in our healthcare communities. And this is something that is more publicized than previously, as well as more frequent than previously. So people are struggling, right? They're struggling to access, they're struggling to cope, they're struggling to understand. And that leads to fear and, I better get out while I can type of mentality. And there's nothing wrong with that. But these are things that just have to be acknowledged. Our healthcare system does operate in silos. Patients receive care from multiple providers who may be very well intentioned to communicate effectively, and life happens, who may not be good at communicating, and life happens. But this breakdown and fragmentation leads to inefficiencies, duplicate tests, duplicate office visits, medication errors, delayed treatments. I laugh personally, I just experienced this. I was onboarding a PRN job and had to do my pre-employment drug screen. Went, did my little thing, thought everything was great. No one told me it wasn't. The lab place that I was at never reached out to say something happened with the sample. Then my recruiter was like, hey, whatever happened with, your drug test? Nothing happened. Didn't know it didn't happen. Here's my receipt. I was there and had to go back. Fortunately nothing out of pocket, but it was my time that I had to go and spend two different hours there waiting and all that stuff. Time for the company that they had, money and time for the company that they have to pay for. And just that burnout and that frustration of the system, right? That breakdown in communication. So just things to think about. Our healthcare system is a very complex web of challenges that require both systematic change and innovation. Addressing these challenges will take time, collaboration, and investment in smarter systems, better care coordination, and accessibility of resources for both the client and the employee. No one person will solve the healthcare crisis. But when we work together, leverage our networks, use our problem-solving brains, and improve, and to make improvements, we can really create meaningful ways to showcase our skill set as PTOT and speech, and to bring healing to patients out there. So adapting to healthcare transformation. The healthcare industry is undergoing major transformation on a daily basis. And in order to thrive in this changing environment, we really have to adapt to new challenges and opportunities as they arise. One of the cornerstones of adapting to healthcare transformation is staying informed. The healthcare landscape is constantly evolving with advancements in technology, policy change and new research. By keeping ourselves updated on the latest trends, regulatory changes, and innovations, we can make informed decisions that improve patient care and operational efficiency. Subscribing to industry journals, attending conferences, engaging with thought leaders are all effective ways to stay ahead in the ever-changing field. There are lots of resources out there in terms of finding journals free of charge to subscribe to. One that I personally love, I receive no kickback from, this is not anything of that nature, I just enjoy it, is Becker's Healthcare. It's a free subscription. And what I love about it, you can tailor it to your interest. So I'm a hospital acute care nerd, so that's what I want to know about. But it doesn't matter the continuum of care. You can stay within therapy. You can go more global healthcare. But I find it interesting. Every day they send, it's like a 15 to 20 point bullet wrap up of the top things that happened. So it talks about mergers, acquisitions. It talks about reimbursement changes coming down the road. As an acute care PT, I find it interesting to know what's happening in home care. I've done home care. I've worked in that area. It's not my passion area, but it's certainly interesting for me to know what services my patients are getting or are being cut and they're not able to get. So definitely Becker's Healthcare, a great free subscription just to get you started. But remembering change is inevitable in healthcare, whether it's new technologies, evolving care models, shift in patients' expectations, right? It's definitely a hotel mentality in healthcare now. Being open to change is crucial for success, right? If we're, as clinicians, thinking about starting a cash-based business or concierge therapy service, patient experience does matter, right? It's not okay that anyone is ever treated with disrespect or things of that nature, but it does happen in larger health systems, right? And in your more factory type of business settings and business models. Again, not acceptable, not okay, it happens. But if I'm coming out as a concierge therapist and charging $200 a session, the patient experience has to look different than what it would in a clinic with 4 or 5 other patients. Should it? Again, no. But the reality is that growth, that mindset of your client does change, right? So when we're thinking about healthcare transformation, it requires flexibility, and organizations really have to embrace innovative changes that really give value-based care. So again, whether that change is on a personal level, if it's on an industry level, if it's on a small independent practitioner level, understanding that innovation does have to happen, right? How we service patients from a rehab med standpoint now does not look the same as it did 5 years ago, let alone 20, and it will not look the same in 5 years from now by 2030. So the change is going to happen. Using our networks and connecting all of our skill sets is how, as therapists, we can really kind of help to innovate that change and be on the forefront of it. So remember, resistance can lead to stagnation. Embracing change can unlock new efficiencies and better outcomes, right? Again, healthcare will change regardless if we do nothing and spend our time being angry, resentful, and fighting, or if we're on the forefront of innovation and acting as a change agent. The bottom line is outcomes matter. Whoever can drive results at financial efficiency is going to get the business. Remember, what looks good on paper is not usually what operates and translates well to operations in the clinic. And we all know this very much by having worked at companies where productivity standards are set by non-clinicians, right? It's just not what happens. So we can be mad and angry and resentful, or we can use our network to create meaningful change. And that is what I encourage you to start thinking about today. So when we're looking at identifying career objectives, right, and as you're planning your career, whether you're a therapist just coming out into the clinical space, whether you're a therapist in a a career change situation, or whether you're a tenured, experienced clinician. You have the gift of freedom of re-exploring and re-examining what your career objectives are on a day-to-day basis. So as you're planning a career, it's important to recognize that your objectives may shift and evolve over your lifetime. Life and professional experiences often lead us to reevaluate what we want from our careers. So let's take a look at some questions that will help you to identify your career objectives and understand how they might change as you advance and progress through your career. Also, remember giving yourself the grace to know, number one, you might fail a couple times, right? And when you're talking about growing a network and we talk about failing, sabotage sets in and all those things, that is a natural part of growing a career, growing a life, and being a human. So embrace that failure, because there is a message from that failure that you will, and learning that comes from that failure, well beyond any textbook, seminar, or training can teach you. So when you're re-looking at your career objectives and it doesn't go as planned and you're sitting back down at the table to re-look at them, don't be upset by it. That's a little tangent I hope to drive home for you. Give yourself the grace to always re-look at these objectives. What you decide today might be entirely different tomorrow. That's okay. When you get there and figure it out, you work from that point and know that it's constantly an opportunity for adjustments and enhancements. So one of the first questions, to consider is whether you want to work directly with patients or in a non-patient care role. Healthcare really does offer both of these paths. Understanding where your passions lie can help you guide your career direction, as well as the growth opportunities that who you want to connect with, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to also be mindful of your own time and your own work-life balance. We can't connect with the 8 billion people in the world all at one time. It's not possible. If you figure out how to, please tell me, because I would love to know. But despite coffee and caffeine consumption, there are only 24 hours in the day. So really helping to figure out whether you want to go down the clinical or non-clinical paths is really step one. If you thrive, in that patient interaction, helping individuals directly, clinical role, probably a good fit. If you're more drawn to the research, policy making, management, then that non-patient care option, non-clinical path is more the path you want to explore. Again, as you're going down those exploration paths, this is discovery. If you get down that path and you're saying, oh my gosh, T-scores, research, not for me, okay, make a new path. Nothing wrong with that. Do you want to have your own business and do you have an entrepreneurial spirit? Do you dream of starting your business or your own healthcare practice? Being your own boss is incredibly rewarding. It comes with an entire own set of challenges, from funding to operations to HR to marketing to doing the actual work, the actual clinical work, whatever that might be. Both are beautiful paths, but understanding what your long-term goal is helps you decide if entrepreneurship is the right path. The amount of work on that forefront of the entrepreneur life is much more than the traditional 9 to 5. And if that is not something that you want to give, there's nothing wrong with that. But also understand that entrepreneur path is most likely not for you, at least not the startup stages. Also, healthcare is a field that sometimes requires flexibility beyond the traditional 9 to 5, 8 to 4 workday. Are you open to working evenings, weekends, or being on call to help service people who are working during the day as well? Something to think about as we're thinking about that career path. Those extra hours, leadership roles, advanced clinical settings, what is your personal capacity for managing this over 40-hour schedule? And what are your work-life balance and preferences? Where are you in your own personal life now? Are you raising a family? Are you taking care of an elder in your house? What do you want to work more than 40 hours or do you not? Right? These are all questions that only you can answer for yourself, but answering them honestly helps you to know who you are, know what you want, and then guide you to connect with people who share those values with you as well. Because as you're growing your career and networking, If you're networking with people who are workaholics and want to work 18, 20 hours a day, but you're someone who only wants to work 6, you're not going to share overlying values and thoughts on how to make those hours work. So you want to set yourself up to connect with people who are going to be able to give you realistic advice based off of what hours you have to offer and give. So as your career progresses, maintaining healthy work-life balance becomes essential. What are the absolute boundaries you need to set to ensure you stay engaged, motivated, and avoid burnout? This is something that I hold very dearly to my heart because guess what? I have failed at it before. And so now I know there are certain things I will not do. I used to be very open to, I'll change my schedule to meet you here, meet you there, blah, blah, blah. That's not good for me. I need routine in my life. So that's a boundary I know because I failed at having one that I know I need. Understanding that as you grow in your network and your career, these boundaries might need to change. Be honest with yourself that you can adjust them as you need to as well. What are your personal needs? What gives you value in your day? What are your ideals that you enjoy working in, right? A little OT knowledge thrown out by a PT, right? What does that align? Are you someone who's looking to merge personal and professional career? Are you someone who wants 2 separate worlds? Both are okay. You have to know what you want and what you're willing to give. Figuring out, do you want to work for someone else? Do you want to work for an organization where there's always going to be politics and red tape, and there's always going to be something to be frustrated about? Do you want to have more independence where you are the one trying to fix the fires, that you are the one trying to make things smooth, also understanding there will always be employees working for you who aren't satisfied as well? Working for a company provides stability, benefits, career advancement, but more structure, less autonomy. On the other hand, being your own boss comes with freedom and flexibility, but requires a higher level of responsibility. And just knowing where you stand and what your risk tolerance are to make those decisions helps your career trajectory and who you're connecting with and growing with. Also asking yourself when you're thinking about your career objectives, what do you do in the slow time, setbacks, and hurdles? Because guess what, guys? They will happen. Whether we want them to or not, they are going to happen. One of the other biggest misconceptions I think I had when I was starting out in my consulting business was that I would be successful in 6 figures overnight. Guess what? I wasn't. And number one, figuring out how to get over that hurdle of non-successful is hard. Figuring out just slow pipelines is hard. And you don't have that large institution to fall back onto to give you time to fill your day. So thinking about how will you handle those moments in between the successes, because they're going to happen. Very few people truly are an overnight success. When we see folks thriving and on TED Talks and on stages and receiving Grammys, no one talks about the moments that led them there to that stage, that awards, that recognition. Every single person has these setbacks and hurdles. I was not prepared for that going down my entrepreneur journey. And so that's something I encourage you to think about when you're identifying your career objectives. How will you manage these slow times? Are you someone who's going to work for a year ahead of time, save up as much as you can, so that way you can ride out the wave of, sometimes the financial ups and downs? Or are you someone who isn't so risk averse? Both are okay answers. You have to decide what it is for you. And these are questions that you might not be able to answer in one day, but definitely involve some thought as you're really sitting down to identify and clearly define your career objectives. It really requires deep reflection and your personal preference, work style, and long-term goals. Remember, again, these objectives can change throughout your career and life. And there is nothing wrong with saying, ooh, this is not what I thought it was, right? I want to go a different path now. Acknowledge that. Don't force yourself to keep going up against a door that's closed. It's closed for a reason. So be willing to continually reassess your priorities, ask the right questions, and navigating a path that aligns with both your professional aspirations and personal values. And having that network and that mentorship of someone with those shared values and aspirations, because those are folks who are going to be able to help you and show you the highs as well as help you when you're down in those lows and those valleys. So where are we? Let me just take a look at questions real quick. Feel free, if there are questions, just to send them in. I don't see any at the time, so we will keep on going. Okay. So as you advance in your healthcare career, building connections becomes natural and essential, and it's part of the progression of our lives. Networking, relationships, and building a strong professional presence are crucial for opening doors to new opportunities. So we want to explore in-person ways to connect with others to accelerate your growth and career. So networking, again, is not just a one-time task. It's an ongoing, natural part of your career journey. And that networking is going to look different as you go through your career. At first, it might be at an AOTA or CSM conference. That might be your first networking step and opportunity. It might be an alumni night at your local university, right? It might be at a, a Rotary Club meeting in your community, a business connection meeting in your community. These things are happening all the time. And as you grow in your career, you will find that your networking opportunities change and grow also. So just remember, these need to evolve with you. Whether you're starting out, looking to transition into a new role, or aiming for a leadership position, having that robust network can help you access valuable opportunities, mentorships, and insights. It's not just about who you know, but it's about who knows you and who can speak to your abilities and character. As I have certainly progressed through my career, I have seen this come back and pay itself dividends on investments, right? The clinical skill sets I have now, I didn't start with. I'm here because I had a tremendous group of people who mentored me and grew me and poured into me, and still continue to do that. And while my group of mentors has changed over the years and the names are different, the connections and gratitude I have for them does not change. And I know when those opportunities to connect come back, it is always welcomed. And it's a natural part of our career progression. So when we're thinking about platforms to connect in today's digital world, online platforms really give us the opportunity to be efficient in this area. Looking at LinkedIn, it's a powerful tool for connecting with professionals across the industry outside of your local community. Sharing organizations, engaging in group dialogue, questions, polls, things of that nature. It can really allow you to showcase your expertise and learn from others. There are health-specific online communities that these platforms offer niches, provide space for you to discuss industry trends, challenges, career development tips with like-minded individuals, right? And it's a place where there's a lot of communities on Facebook that support driving, support non-clinical education, or non-clinical opportunities, networking, things of that nature. A great way just to connect. I don't know, for any of you that are on there already, you might see people saying, hey, I was laid off. These are my skill sets. If anyone knows anyone looking, this is what I'm open to do. I'm open to relocating, or I'm not open to relocating, right? But it's a conversation. It's another way just to get your name out and to connect in our healthcare world and space. We have our other social media platforms that you can think about, Instagram, TikTok, oh my gosh, my mind's blanking on the other one. But there's so many out there, right? Finding one that's meaningful to what, number one, you want access to, and number two, if you're advertising, where your ideal client is going to be positioned, right? If I'm looking for an older demographic, Facebook is definitely the platform I want to be on, versus if I'm looking for a younger demographic, TikTok, great pending access issues, versus Instagram, different age ranges I'm focusing on those social media platforms. So while digital connections are important, there's still a lot for that one-on-one in-person connection. It's probably still one of the most effective ways to grow those genuine relationships. When we're in presence with somebody, you get to pick up more on the actual nonverbal communication strategies of folks too, their body language, their receptiveness, their openness. So, if you're connecting with people who are on the other side of the United States, when you go to conferences, find a way to grab a cup of coffee, go for a morning walk together, whatever it is, and get that in-person connection, even if it's just for a short 15, 20 minutes. Networking events and meetups outside of our industry conventions and conferences. These are a great way to find local healthcare providers, healthcare strategists that allow you to interact with them in a more informal setting. Great for making connections outside of the professional, like boardroom interactions. Volunteering and community engagement. You might go to an event to act, as a volunteer, and it has nothing at all to do with healthcare. But you never know who you're going to run into also volunteering at these community engagement events. So it's a great way to meet individuals from varied backgrounds who share passions and values, and, can be an open door for a conversation into the professional realm. And mentorship and peer groups. Seeking out in your area if these are options where you can both learn and offer your own knowledge and kind of have a knowledge share with each other that really look at more sustained interaction and continued opportunity for growing and working on those conversations. Toastmasters are something that over in New Jersey, I see a lot of Toastmasters groups where folks who are working on public speaking will go and practice those speaking skills. You'd be amazed at some folks' titles of some folks that are in the room. You would think, wow, by title alone, they shouldn't need to work on their public speaking. But everyone is looking to grow. So those relationships you can form in those peer groups can also translate into your professional healthcare growth. And it's important when you're looking at growing your network, you're not just exchanging contact cards. You're not just exchanging Blink cards or the business cards or a LinkedIn request and then spamming someone's inbox with, did you know I can help you with? No. That's not a meaningful connection. That's going to get you blocked and deleted, right? It's about building genuine, meaningful relationships that are mutually beneficial, whether that is wishing somebody a happy birthday, whether it's my life hack that I'll tell you all my secret, how I do it in my phone and my contact information in the notes section. I will write in what that person tells me about themselves that's meaningful, whether it's their kids' names, their dogs' names, they really dislike this or they really like this, something that's meaningful. Because while I have a pretty good memory, I am human and I do forget things. So this is just an opportunity for folks that are maybe not in my immediate circle, who I don't see on a daily basis, that when I do know I'm going to see, I have a cheat sheet for myself of ways of looking back and saying, I remember that conversation. To put a smile on my face, I'll have to ask that person about how that went, right? I don't know if that's socially appropriate, if we're not supposed to do that. And if your brains work to remember everything about everyone, I admire you, commend you, and would like to know your secret. But if you're like me, that's how I get through life and build my network. And my friends that I network with, that you might be listening to this webinar and you wondered how I always do things about you, now you know my secret. I am busted and exposed. Talk about vulnerable. And dripping water down my face for all to see. So that's how we build our network. A little bit of humor in there too. So just remember, online and in person, it's an integral part of building your professional journey. Engaging, the right platforms, creating genuine relationships. And again, what works initially might not work, a couple months in when you're looking to grow your network. Remember that. Give yourself the grace to change with that as you are also growing. So when you're also thinking about growing your professional career and who you want to connect with, I encourage you to think about what qualities did your best boss have? What qualities did your worst boss have? We don't need to name anybody by name. We're not looking to shame people. Everyone has goods and bads. Even our best bosses had bad qualities, right? So looking at those people, and even your worst boss had a good quality. You might not have been able to identify it in the moment, but I guarantee you they did have a redeeming quality. So what did you learn from them? What good, what bad? What did they do that created friction? What did you learn from them? You know, what did they emulate, that what skill did they have that you want to emulate in your life? Again, just as learning about networking isn't a one-stop, one-size-fits-all, I take this course, I'm good to go. Understanding who you are in that next chapter of your growth isn't all good, isn't all bad. You're going to have both. So learning from those who have come before us, being aware of opportunities that we can falter and that we can succeed, and growing from that standpoint. So entrepreneur life. One, we all have our things that just drive us nuts. The one that drives me nuts is we've always done it that way. I wish those words could be erased in a sentence formation and never be said again. Healthcare is constantly evolving, and whether it's through new technologies, patient care models, delivery systems, intervention, research, tests and study drugs, regulatory changes, holding on to outdated processes simply because that's how we've always done it, it really hinders progress, prevents growth. It creates animosity, and those who are not embracing change, it creates fear, and fear usually is translated as control, right? So understanding that you are going to be up against this, if you are an entrepreneur trying to connect for growth in the healthcare space, there are people who don't want to change. So you are going to have to look at that mindset and how you can connect with other people who have maybe found ways to work through that mindset, whether it's in an organization or starting your own company. When we think about moving forward, we have to cultivate that mindset of innovation, openness. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, is there a better way to do this? You know, or, hey, boss, I've noticed we're always scoring low on X, Y, and Z on our patient scorecards. I'm thinking of ways we could improve. What do you think of A, B, and C intervention? It allows the mindset of an open door to more patient-centered care, and takes away what can be received as the finger in your face, you're doing this wrong. So thinking about that also, if your path is entrepreneur, you are not going to be knocking on doors to offer your service and saying, hey, company A, you're doing it wrong. I'm here to show you how to do it better. That might be ultimately what you're saying, but if you come to someone's desk to say that, pretty sure you're not going to get business because it's going to come across threatening. So finding ways to re-script and reword, but to get to the bottom of what you need to say. When we're connecting for growth, again, that network, building a strong professional network is essential to stay informed about new trends, technologies, and practices, right? I am an acute care PT and I still work PRN. If you talk to me about an outpatient, if you talk to me and put me in an outpatient clinic, could I survive? With tears and probably some sore heels, right? Some sore feet. But I am not up to date on outpatient trends. But if I get sent to an outpatient clinic for a day, I have people in my network that I could call and say, hey, what is this new thing that you're doing? Because back when I did outpatients, we did iontophoresis. I don't think that's a thing anymore, right? So understanding that we're not supposed to know everything, and who are the people in your network who can give you that up-to-date information and reference when you're expanding that network. And also when you have folks from different areas talking about what's successful in their areas, what's not successful, it also helps you to think about too, where is there a breakdown that I can fill a market share? Where can I fill a void? How can myself, the acute care PT, and my friend, the home care PT, come together to fill a patient void? What is that patient void, right? So connecting with people outside your immediate field or area of practice can just give you fresh perspectives and insights and way to solve problems. Expanding conferences, we talked about this by attending conference, expanding your network by attending conferences. online communities, newsletters, um, and even reaching out to folks outside of healthcare, right? Maybe you're someone who's really into design and you're seeing somebody who's struggling moving around in the house or the community, and you want to redesign the rollator, or you want to redesign the walker basket, whatever it might be. What are those cross industry connections that can help to spark new ideas and lead to collaborations that you might not have otherwise considered? Right? Maybe you have a design in your head that you just know would impact how patients are able to hold utensils and feed themselves after a stroke, but you don't know the first thing about plastics or polymers, or I don't know, what do you use to create buildups with, right? But maybe you meet someone at a networking event who is an engineer or a chemist. I don't even know who you'd need to meet. But that role of cross industry connections to help to grow that network and then move forward with your idea is so, so important, right? Because there are a lot of non-healthcare people in our healthcare space, vice versa. So thinking also about, not limiting yourself to the traditional career path of acute, rehab, outpatient, peds, home care, whatever it might be. Explore opportunities in emerging sectors, telehealth, healthcare innovation, employee wellness, public health, healthcare entrepreneurship, cash-based services. They can really offer great ways to enhance our profession, line up with our skill sets and scope of practice and our high-level degrees that we have, and impact, our career options, and really kind of blaze a path for the generations coming up behind us as well. When we're thinking about entrepreneur life, what frustrations do you experience and how can you fix it? Is it a fixable issue? Is it an issue involving someone that you can have an impact on, or do you have zero control over it? Is it a process issue? What are the pain points that would give you an opportunity to create solutions? And sometimes the solution you create might not be implemented in where you are now, but when you get your brain thinking and open to, this might be a good idea, it helps you just to expand who you draw into your network and where those ideas can take you. Remembering you won't get it right all the time and giving yourself so much grace, because you will learn more from these moments than you will from your successes. I would have never believed it. I would have thought you were a wild lunatic if you told me that 10 years ago. But having failed and been forced to grow again, I will tell you, I learned so much more in those times of struggle, tears, and on the kitchen floor with a half gallon of ice cream than I did receiving awards and accolades. And those other parts are really nice and they make you feel good, right? Of course, it's part of what keeps us going. But I would say now into this journey for myself, I don't want struggle every day. Don't hear me wrong. But when it happens, I kind of embrace it a lot differently. And I get excited because for me, I know I'm going to mess up. I give myself the grace to forgive myself. I certainly don't intend to harm anyone or anything, and I do live by that motto. But I know when I do have a human moment, there is so much for me to learn from this, and I'm being directed in a different path that will open up and just take me to the next level. So, and it probably is pushing me into a discomfort zone, but taking those risks and trying new things, when they don't go as planned, that's okay. Reworking them and trying experimenting and seeing what happens the next time, and learning from both the successes and the setbacks. View them as learning experiences. You gain valuable insights that will make you better equipped to navigate future challenges. The real key is to stay persistent, learn from your experiences, and to keep evolving. My own, my own soapbox, in healthcare in general, I think it is imperative we have to move beyond the phrase, but we've always done it that way. Our healthcare system will not continue to exist as it does if we cannot look at doing things differently, embracing new opportunities to expand your network, Explore those non-traditional roles and develop innovative solutions to everyday frustrations. Remember, give yourself the grace. You will not likely get it right the first time. If you do, I commend you and I'm so excited for you. With each experience, though, you learn and grow. And this mindset of continuous improvement, openness to change, that'll drive progress in both our healthcare careers, healthcare industries, as well as your own personal career. So when we talk about building strategic relationships, there is that value to that long-term professional relationship. Again, I'm 19 years in as a clinician. I'm still connected to people from day one. And it's wild to me to see how those people come back and reconnect in different facets of my professional career. Making the connections easy, maintaining the connection is the challenge. Social media definitely makes it easier to reach out and connect with folks, but it takes time, right? For me, I use calendars. I use reminders in those calendars. The first of every month, I personally send out business cards. Not business cards, birthday cards to celebrate folks. I have gotten away from social media holiday greetings or birthday greetings and take that quick moment just to send out personalized information, personalized hellos. It might be nothing more than happy birthday, love Katie. It might not be a long message, but it is something meaningful. And looking at those strategic relationships, it's your peers, it's your mentors, it's sometimes your clients, right? And there's a way to have that strategic relationship with a client that does not impact our professional code of conduct, right? There's certain time restraints that have to follow, but there are ways that clients can become strategic partners, or they can introduce you to a business partner of a colleague of theirs that can be a strategic partner. Vendors also, right? When you have your vendor who's coming into your clinic to do your bracing or to do your wheelchair positioning, these vendors are all over in all different clinics. These are great folks to have strategic relationships with. And we all know that paths cross and paths interconnect. So some action steps for you to leave with today. I encourage you to think about who are the 2 people you want to meet, who would really, when you sit back and truly evaluate what your career goals are, who are the 2 people that could be the most influential for you to meet? Find out, do they work with mentees? Do you know anyone who is connected with them? Get a good old social media creeping session on, right? Go on LinkedIn. Who are they connected with? Are you connected with anyone they're connected with? What are their interests? Do their interests match up with you? Be genuine in that, right? If their interest is going to a knitting club and you hate knitting, don't go there on false pretenses. But if you love knitting, go get your knitting needles and go connect, right? And find ways to genuinely interact with them, and to get into the circle that you can meet with that person. Can you collaborate on projects of interest? Can you be a resource to that person? Sometimes it's also not just taking, it's giving as well. Not sometimes. In all mentorship relationships, it's not taking only, it's giving, right? So how can you help support and give? Maybe they're doing an event and they need volunteers to help with registration. Go ahead, get yourself out there, right? Those action steps, write out a plan and set a monthly time to check in on progress. I do this personally on a monthly basis. I actually have 5 stars and I rate myself every month on those 5 stars. How am I doing 1 to 5? Those months where I'm feeling at a 1 and 2, it sure doesn't feel good, but you know what? It helps me get myself back in track with what I'm looking for. Just as we with our clients would have short and long-term goals, give yourself those short and long-term goals. And it gives you those little check-in points of opportunities of, hey, I made progress. Check the box, right? So do that for yourself. And practice gratitude for your current network, even if you have 0 network, right? Hopefully after today, you've met somebody on this call. I'm not looking at the chat just because of my own attention piece parts of my brain, but I hope there's an opportunity that you have been able to connect with each other. If you have not yet, I encourage you to pop into the chat box and say hello, where you're from, what your discipline is. And if you want to connect, if you have a LinkedIn, throw your LinkedIn connection out there and just continue this conversation offline. Even if you meet one person today that you would not have met before, that is a step in connecting for your career growth. And practicing gratitude, as I said, I have a list of people that you'll see in a moment, people that I'm grateful for in my life. People on that list are have been with me. My best friend, Amy Wilk, from right before high school started. There are people on that list who taught me some really hard lessons and I wouldn't want to see in life, but I am grateful for them and some of those lessons that they've taught me. There are people on that list who have passed on, but those are meaningful connections that I am grateful for on a day to day basis because there are a lot of people on that list that I would not be who I am if they had not poured into me. So when you're developing those meaningful connections, get out of your head of the mindset of I don't want to be annoying. You're not annoying, right? I think that's sometimes this thing the saboteur tells us. That's not the case. Look up if you're not really comfortable with the role of the mentee mentor is or how to ask questions to start that relationship. Spend some time on Google and see what you find out. If you do have someone who is, meeting up with you, be on time. Be respectful of that. If something comes up that's unplanned, communicate that. But with people who are giving in and pouring into you, it's a two-way street and be mindful of that. Remember, no idea is a bad idea. Mentorship should be a safe space for feedback. And, it sometimes can be hard to receive that feedback. So saying and preferencing things with like, oh, this might be a bad idea, it kind of sets the tone, right? So just say the idea. It's a safe space for feedback. Show appreciation. It doesn't have to be a monetary gift. It can be a simple handwritten thank you or personalized email. Touch base between sit downs and opportunities, even if there's no response from the mentor, but just saying, hey, I really enjoyed our time together. I was able to think about what you said. I applied it to my practice. This happened, and I am so grateful for that feedback, right? You might not hear from them, but that is a great way to build that connection. And also pay it forward. When you get to a place in your career, whether it's year 1, year 15, year 30, year 40, whatever it is, pay it forward. Pay it forward because that is what our career is. That's how I'm here. That's how a lot of you are here. That's how our career is structured. So helping to pay that forward is really important. People, like I said, that I'm grateful for, that I wouldn't be here without, quite frankly. And it kind of stems from the early part of my career up until my current career, and all of those folks have different roles, and I am just incredibly grateful for every single person that's on that list. So if you guys do happen to be on this one day, thank you. Appreciate you getting me all here. So that about wraps us up. I will take a look in the inbox just to see if there are any questions. Certainly, or you have any thoughts you want to share, here's all my contact information. Would love to connect with you on social media. Feel free to follow along. Instagram is where I post mostly. You have my email, drkatieoshea@gmail.com. Call or text 856-452-1532. But I thank you all who jumped on today. I hope it was helpful. It got your brain thinking. And I wish you all the best in your careers and connecting for growth, and hope to connect with some of you. And Mariah, I don't see any questions, so unless you see anything that I'm missing, I think we are all wrapped up for our webinar. So thank you all, everyone. Have a great day.